files a suit, it must give particulars. Example, we can see the plate from the top to bottom. It is exactly as per order 7 rule 1. 7 rule 1. So there is a cost cycle, parties to the suit, description of parties. Description of parties also plays vital role because under order 6 rule 14a, every change of address that is given in the pleadings, it must be informed to the court as well as to the opposite party. For service of summons notices or other interlocutory application notices are there, it is a duty of the party to mention the change of address. So next, the facts must contain material facts. All material facts, there should not be any suppression of fact. When there is any suppression of fact, it goes to the root of the case because the conduct of the parties will be gauged by the honorable court. So to overcome that, your claim should be very as simple as in a simple language it must be pleaded, and when you are filing a suit against the defendant, you must plead that why the defendant is whether he is interested in the subject matter, whether there is any whether there is any character for against the property or dispute. So if there is any dispute, supposing if defendant had gained some document in his favor and you are aware of that, you must also plead that document, because if it is an open land, there may be a possibility of raising any constructions over the property. The nature of the suit that you have filed may also change from stage to stage. So when it is open land particularly, and if you come across the fact that the defendant had some light over the property or a survey number dispute is there, you must also state the ascertain the facts from the plaintiff and gather material in preparing the file, and the nature of the defense that would be taken by the defendant must also be gauged by the advocate in preparing the plaintiff. So what is very important now is the limitation. The limitation, that is exemptions from limitation. So what is the exemption from limitation? Under section 3 of Limitation Act, the suit must be filed within the limitation as prescribed in this Limitation Act, as well as the schedule given in the Limitation Act, articles given in the Limitation Act. For filing of the suit, there is no extension of time. But there are exemptions under Limitation Act. Those exemptions must be taken note of by the plaintiff if the circumstances so arise. So what are those exemptions that are available for the plaintiff? It must be gauged from the Limitation Act. Under Limitation Act, whenever the plaintiff is away from out of India, when the limitation lapsed, by the time the suit, the limitation is going to, when the limitation is expired, the plaintiff is not in India, he is away from outside the jurisdiction of Indian courts, and the period that during the stay at other countries, and the period will be exempted from limitation. There are other sections under Limitation Act where certain disabilities are also given. When both the plaintiffs are entitled to file a suit, when one plaintiff cannot give consent for filing the other suit by virtue of some disability, and till such disability is completely cured and he is fit for giving any consent or rational thinking in filing the suit, till such time there is exemption for filing the suit. So there are other exemptions under Limitation Act where we can take, in the event if those circumstances are coming in our way, you can also take and do documents that are required to prove the exemption must be filed. It must be clearly mentioned in the plate. There should be a separate paragraph why he was prevented from filing the suit. Because I am out of India, when the limitation is expired, I came back to India. This is a passport. This is a visa card where I have come to India. So the documents Next, the disability, the prescriptions that is given by the doctor, continuous prescription that is given by the doctor, that can be taken on. When he dies before the disability is cured, his disability is cured, and his legal health can file a suit. If the legal heirs are also suffering from the other disabilities, till such disability is cleared, the limitation point is exempted from filing the suit. So there are other limitation factors for exemption or some limitation act can be taken now. And apart from the exemption period, where the limitation act will not come in the way, the original limitation that one has to file the suit must also be taken note of it. There are only one provision of Article 54 where specific relief act is there. There are two clauses, and those two clauses are there when an agreement is there and a date is fixed in the agreement of sale. From that date, 3 years, and when there is no date mentioned under the second limb of Article 54, he is entitled to file within 3 years from the date of denial, refusal to perform the contract of. So the provisions of limitation or limitation act has to also be taken into consideration, and the suit must be filed. Suppose there is a suit, one has to file for cancellation of the document. So for cancellation of the document, 3 years. Supposing if you are not aware whether such document is created by the other party, and you are suffering from disability. So from the date of knowledge of 3 years, also from the date of recovery from the disability, you can file the suit. So what provision of limitation act will come to your rescue? What is the original provision article that gives right for the plaintiff to file and to say that this suit is within limitation? It is not just sufficient to say that my suit is within limitation. You must explain because a limitation clause is also made in the plaintiff. So it is not an empty formality. Next comes the court fee. So when court fee is there, one has to file the suit within the pecuniary jurisdiction of the Honorable Court as well as the territorial jurisdiction. So pecuniary and territorial jurisdiction must be considered from section 15 to 21A, regarding the immovable properties, movable properties, other causes of action, the objections to be taken by the defendant in the written statement. All this comes from section 15 to 21A of the CTC. So as a plaintiff, you should be able to say that this court is having a territorial jurisdiction as well as pecuniary jurisdiction. Suppose two reliefs are there, so how it should be calculated and what court fee must be paid is also to be looked at, because under Order 7 Rule 10, the court, after numbering the suit and the summons are issued to the defendant, the court can return the plaint for what undervaluation of the suit or deficit court fee. So to avoid that, you must see this is the provision and this is the court fee that is assessed as per the Court Fee Act, and you must file it. And second thing, after the court fee, so verification comes. So who has to file verification? As per the order 1, the plaintiffs have to file the suit, defendants or the parties to the suit. And who has to verify? The verification should be by the plaintiff, and in case if plaintiff authorizes any any agent, the agent shall verify the plaintiff by stating so that I am the agent of the plaintiff. If he is a minor, a guardian can file a suit on behalf of the minor stating that I am the guardian. He should file an application under Rule 32 and seek permission to file it. Even if there is a defendant, one has to file an application to say that so person, she is a mother or child, so mother or father or natural guardian. If it is a GPA, it should be as per the it should be a lawful GPA. It must be stamped and it must be from the proper custody. It must come to the plaintiff. Now we are seeing that some anonymous plaintiffs are filing the suit without knowing the original plaintiff. So we must be very conscious in filing the suit, and the plaintiff, when the plaintiff is taken into consideration and plaintiff is numbered, the court will order for summons. When summons are issued, originally summons personal service is required, and there are many sub rules under Order 5. There are main rules, and after 2002, email ID, service of summons through email, service of summons through courier services, and other modes of services by appointment of commissioner also it is there. So summons can be served on the parties personally from the Honorable Court process server, through the process server, email ID. Next comes the courier service, that is as the Honorable Court guides us, and those proofs are must be filed before the court to show that this is a service of summons. So when service of summons are there, and if the defendant is avoided to receive any summons, there is, as we know that under Order 5 Rule 20, we will find an application for substitute service of summons by publication in newspaper. The newspaper in the, it is always safe that widely circulated newspaper publication is sufficient. Still in the Limitation Act says that service of summons by way of substitute service in the paper publication, by way of paper publication, is not a sufficient service of summons. So from the date of knowledge, if the defendant comes and says that yesterday I came to know about the paper publication to so and so source, so I am filing this application. At any point of time, then 9 Rule 13 petition can be filed by the defendant. So as far as possible, see that the servants are being served personally through the process of register post, courier service, email, or whatever services by appointment of commissioner as well as. So ultimate mode is 5 Rule 20 alternatively. Next comes when the summons are ordered. When summons are ordered and the process is not deposited by the plaintiff. When summons is ordered and process is not deposited by the plaintiff. The next stage is court will dismiss the suit against those defendants for which the process is ordered, and it is not complied as per Order 9 Rule 4. Order 9. When as per Order 9, if summons or notices are not deposited by the plaintiff or the party who is directed, and in that event, the suit will be dismissed by against that defendant. Next, on receipt of summons from the Honorable Court, the defendant has to file a suit. The defendant has to file a suit, while filing the suit, if the facts and circumstances are such that he may admit the claim of the plaintiff, the other set of defendants may deny the claim of the plaintiff. In case of denial, what pleadings should be there? Similarly, as is said under Order 6, one should plead, the defendant should plead all material facts, and he should also deny the facts stated by the plaintiff in the plaint. Paragraph wise, he must deny. Simple denial, general denial is not a denial. It amounts to admission of the facts of the plaintiff. So in that event, even if there is a defense, even if there is a denial in the written statement and issues are framed, the suit will be decreed in favor of the plaintiff. Your denial should be specific. We should give circumstances why the plaintiff has filed a suit against you. Because unless there is some dispute between the plaintiff and defendant, no prudent person will come to the court and file a suit. So the defendant must show all the circumstances that this is to settle that account, to settle the other accounts. He has created some documents, or say all the pleadings must be specifically denied, and he should also say the facts which are to show that the plaintiff has no cause of action. So the defendant must read all these documents, and especially when the defendant is there. When plaintiff has suppressed any material fact, any dismissal of the earlier suit, or earlier finding before any court, and the defendant must read that so and so suit was filed, so and so suit was filed, and the suit was decided against the plaintiff. So the suit in that the suit in the earlier suit since was disposed earlier to the suit of this suit, it operates as res judicata. So when res judicata plea is there, one has to see that res judicata pertains to the facts of the case decided, when the findings are in respect of the character of the person, any finding is given by a competent court of jurisdiction, competent jurisdiction court, and character of the court, issues are decided, and any finding against the plaintiff, if it is suppressed by the plaintiff in filing the suit, the defendant must plead, and he also should file the document along with the written statement. So along with the plaint as well as along with the written statement, the documents must be filed, because after 2002 amendment, 2002 amendment says that all the documents must be pleaded. All the documents along with the pleadings must be filed before the court. And suppose if the parties to the suit, say plaintiff or defendant, they are unable to file the original documents, and he should say the reason why he is not filing the original document, and also there should be an undertaking that he will file the original document at the time of trial or at a later stage. So this, unless this pleading in the plaint or written statement is there, even suppose subsequently if you file those documents, if the other party opposes, your document will not be received on record. So if original is not filed, certified copy is there. When certified copy is filed, original document is not filed, you must always plead. Definitely you should plead, take a plea in the pleadings about the existence of document. Next comes the written statement. Suppose if the defendant has got a separate cause of action against the plaintiff, this cause of action should also be within limitation against the plaintiff. So when such cause of action is there, he has two options. One, he may file a separate suit against the plaintiff, or along with the written statement, he can file set off, or say along with the file, if circumstances arises, he can file as well a counter claim. So when counter claim is filed, counter claim is to be filed, it should be filed along with the plaint, as well as the set off should be filed along with the plaint. So in this particular circumstances, 826 says that set off, it is only pertain to money dispute between the parties to the suit. The plaintiff is having some money me, and this is the amount. So the court must set off, and the rest of the amount to be ordered either by the party, plaintiff to defendant or defendant to plaintiff. And next, counterclaim. Counterclaim is not only in respect of money suit, but in respect of other different circumstances. But the scope should be at least very near to the cause of action of the plaintiff. When two different causes of action by virtue of counterclaim and written statement or plaint, if both are different, it is safe. It should be a separate plaint. Separate suit it must be tried. Because next, this set off and counterclaim should be within the jurisdiction of the suit that was originally instituted by the plaintiff. It should not exceed the jurisdiction of the suit that was filed by the plaintiff. But the plaintiff has gotten one option. Suppose in case if the defendant files counterclaim, which necessitates the plaintiff to file written statement along with the counterclaim, or along with the counterclaim, whereby virtue of filing separate written statement on counterclaim by the plaintiff to the counterclaim of the defendant, the jurisdiction of the court may exceed. The relief that is claimed in the junior civil judge may enhance to the senior civil judge. In that event, he can file an application under Order 6 Rule 17 and make amendments to the suit as well as and counterclaim. But counterclaim cannot be received by the beyond the jurisdiction of the peculiar jurisdiction of the court. By way of amendment, if the plaintiff can mold the relief from the permanent injunction to declaration and recovery position, or say other thing, by molding the relief, the court can entertain the application, can allow the application if warrants, the circumstances warrants and facts warrants. The honorable court can entertain the application, allow the application. By allowing the application, the court can direct the parties to file before the regular court, having the jurisdiction court, proper court. So these are jurisdictional points as well as the pleadings of plaintiff, counterclaim and set off. And next is, while pleading the set off and counterclaim, since the jurisdiction is within the purview of the same court, the same court, when counterclaim and set off is there, similarly as the written statement is filed by the defendant, the plaintiff must be given an opportunity to say. And the next stage.
హలో చెప్పండి. నేను మీటింగ్లో ఉన్నాను, వచ్చింది. నేను ఒక అరగంటలో నేను పంపిస్తాను. మీటింగ్ వస్తాను, నాకు వాట్సాప్ చేయండి. ఒక అరగంట నాకు చేయకండి, మీటింగ్ ఉంది.
Want to plead subsequent pleading, this can be done so only by taking leave of the Honorable Court under Order 8, Rule 9. So under Order 8, Rule 9, it can be invoked at any stage of the suit, including before delivery of judgment. It can be invoked at any stage of the suit. So permission is required, separate application should be filed for filing rejoinder or say replica, whatever you say, and also other circumstances warranting the sale. It should be ordered by the court. It's not a straitjacket formula that it can be received just that. But for proper disposal of the case, usually court may allow. It is not. It is not a shall. It may allow the parties to file the other pleadings under Order 8 Rule 9. Next is important ground is under Order 7, because we are dealing with the counterclaim, set off, written statement and plaint. Now under Order 7, under Order 8, there are separate provisions for the plaintiff as well as defendant to file the documents which were not earlier filed along with the pleadings. That is, for the plaintiff it is under Order 7 Rule 14 and for the defendant it is under Order 8 Rule. And there are certain circumstances where the documents will not be filed. It will be confronted to the party for refreshing their memory. That is a different circumstances. That covers under different. So the documents invariably must be filed. Suppose there are certain documents where you make an application under RTI or say are different matters and you have not received. You have made an application for rectification of interest, that is also continued in the revenue department. You want to file a separate suit for declaration of title, and that you will also refer about the revenue proceedings, but you cannot file any document because the proceedings are there. And suppose if that is disposed pending suit, those documents can be filed. So necessarily there should be some basic foundation in the pleadings for receiving the documents under 7 Rule 14 or under Order 8, which were not filed along with the suit. Earlier, sufficient cause must be shown, but in the under Order 13 Rule 2. But in the present situation of the amendment of 2002, leave of the court is compulsory. So leave of the court means it has to some basis in the pleadings. Without reference to the pleadings, without the document being referred in the pleadings, it cannot be received on record. Just as the documents cannot be received, it will have its own implication on the trial as well as the judgment of the parties. So next comes the rejection of plaint. Rejection of plaint, it is very, very important because for want of cause affection, for insufficient stamp, if it is filed for under deficit court frequency, it is filed, it can be rejected, when the opportunity is given for the plaintiff to pay the deficit court fee when the plaintiff is returned, and those circumstances can be changed. If it is barred by law, because under Section 9, all civil nature suits can be entered in civil courts. When special tribunals are barring the jurisdiction of the civil court, you cannot invoke the civil court. What should be taken into consideration? Example, SURFACI Act is there. When SURFACI Act is there, there are separate sections and rules under SURFACI Act, and debt recovery tribunal is there, recovery of debts and other separate. The powers and duties of the tribunals, for which the special act is enacted, and the jurisdiction of the tribunal must be taken into consideration. When the jurisdiction of the tribunal, the relief you are claiming in the civil suit is beyond the jurisdiction, beyond the power of the tribunal, definitely the civil court will have jurisdiction. In those circumstances, you must necessarily take that a particular act prevents bars the civil court jurisdiction, but the tribunal is not vested with any right to decide those facts. Because in the example, this is SURFACI Act. Debt recovery tribunal will be deciding the matter concerning the debts pertaining to the mortgage properties, NPA properties and other circumstances. Third parties' rights are also there, but whether title to the document, title to the property or other disputes can be decided by the tribunal, it must be considered. So, over the special tribunal decide that is us from filing the suit, you must say these are the circumstances where still the civil court had jurisdiction to maintain the suit. Next, the plaint must be filed in duplicate. It is also by way of amendment it is stated that if the plaint is not filed in duplicate, it can be rejected. It is a curable defect, it can afford the job. So when barred by law, we are coming across many judgments where it is a question of fact, it is a question of law, sometimes it is a question of mixed question of fact and law. It all depends from fact to fact. So these are the grounds of the rejection of the claim. Next comes, because why I am saying that, when statutory notices are there, when the plaintiff has not filed the documents, not issued the notices and filed the suit, and due to oversight or otherwise the suit is numbered, the defendant have a right to raise such point, legal point, that since the Section 80 notice is not complied with and the suit is instituted, the suit is liable to be rejected. When the suit is filed against municipal corporation, 1 month notice is statutory. Even for Section 80, there is a dispensation in filing the suit. But in the Municipal Corporation Act, there is no such dispensation. You are necessary to give 1 month notice. And if notice is not given, the suit is not made up. So when those circumstances, when there is a failure on the part of the plaintiff, the defendant must necessarily take a plea in the written statement as to the maintainability of the suit for want of such mandatory notices. Supposing if the defendant do not take such notices, such objection in the written statement, pleadings in the written statement, there is a waiver. When there is a waiver as to the jurisdictional aspect and as to the charge, and those waiver he cannot raise subsequently in first appeal or second appeal, he cannot raise for the first time. So, for the plaintiff or defendant, it is necessary that this statutory notice, if has to be taken, plaintiff must take. If the plaintiff has not taken any notices before instituting the suit, the defendant must take a pleading in a written statement as to the maintainability of the suit. So the next comes after filing of the written statements. And suppose if the defendant did not file written statement, what is the course of action for the court? The court may dismiss the suit. Set him ex parte against the defendant who has not filed the suit. So there is no limitation for filing written statement. There is no limitation for filing written statement or by invoking Order 9, Rule 7. This is most important. I am saying, please take note. This is under 9 rule 7. When the defendant has not filed, he will be set ex parte. There is no limitation for filing application under 9 rule 7 to set aside the ex parte decree and file legal statement. It can be filed at any time. The stages in which the defendant is filing. The stage when the defendant is filing the application, whether it is before settlement of issues or settlement of issues, after settlement of issues, after commencement of plaintiff evidence, after closure of plaintiff evidence, or the contesting defendant's evidence is closed, when he is filing, it must be gathered. Because time and again, our Honorable High Court as well as the Supreme Court says that the defendant cannot turn back the clock back to the date of filing the suit and say that he was prevented from so and so person and his ex parte order may be considered. So there are circumstances where the court has set aside the ex parte order but did not permit the defendant from filing the suit, a written statement, and only permitted it to contest from that stage only. So what is the purpose of that defendant in contesting from that stage if his ex parte is set aside at the time of argument? So one has to see, as a petitioner, defendant petitioner who is filing application under 907, it must be immediately before settlement of issues or at least before the commencement of time to avoid all such legal complications. But 907, there is an exception. It cannot be invoked. Please remind. I am reminding you, it cannot be invoked after the matter is heard and posted for judgment. When the matter is heard, when he was ex parte, the matter is heard from the plaintiff and the matter is posted for judgment. When the matter is posted for judgment, the defendant has no right to invoke Order 9, Rule 7. He has no right to seek the relief and he has no right to file the written statement. So the entire claim of the defendant cannot be considered, even if his claim is very prudent and good than the plaintiff. So he has to suffer the legal consequences from not filing the 9 Rule 7. This is most important. And second, under Order 9, this is also important, 9 Rule 13. Usually 9 Rule 13 can be filed by any of the parties. If there are one defendant, okay, same person. If there are other defendants than one, if there are other defendants than one, any of the defendant files, and the nature of the suit that is so filed by the plaintiff is such that the applicant is, suppose defendant number 1 is filing only, defendant number 1 only is filing the application to set aside 9 Rule 13. The other defendants are also set ex parte. If the court feels that the ex parte decree is to be set aside, the ex parte decree can be set aside against the petitioner or defendant as well as other petitioners who have not filed any application to set aside ex parte order. And the whole decree can be set aside. It all depends on the nature of pleadings, nature of relief claimed against these defendants. So 9 Rule 13, it is one of the circumstances where even if one applicant among the defendants files an application, whole decree can be set aside. So after filing written statement, next comes framing of issues. After filing of the written statement and before the framing of issues, the stage pertains to the production of documents. You should not be confined. You should not be confused that along with the date we will be filing documents. Along with the written statement we are filing the document. Still the court has given power, still the court has given opportunity for the parties to file the documents if it requires from each of the parties. One is under Order 10 to see that whether there is any admissions on the part of the defendant as to the claim of the plaintiff, whether the second thing, under the Order 11, the plaintiff or the defendant pleads something, and we can give interrogatories or the discovery, the inspection of documents and the discovery. We can give notices under as per the forms prescribed under Appendix C. the production of those documents, and 2, defeat the case of the plaintiff, defeat the case of the adversary party, or to gain to prove our case. We can give notices, we can give interrogatories. Interrogatories must be given only one time. Second time it cannot be given. And sometimes even after settlement of issues also, there is a provision that time limits under different provisions. There are many interrogatories, discovery notices, notice to admit the plaintiff, pleadings. All the forms are given specifically under the appendix C. That must be given to the defendant, and within the time limit you must answer the claim. So, in case if the defendant is not producing those documents, what is the effect? It will be at the time of trial, it can be considered. Next comes the documents that are referred in the pleadings. Suppose certified copy is filed, he has not filed the original document. He has not filed the original document. The defendant the other side want the original copy of it. At that stage also, we can give notice, and it is the duty of the defendant to produce those documents. Even those documents. Next comes, if there is any, if there is no dispute between the parties to the suit, if there is any admission by the parties to the suit, it can be decreed. It can be decided by passing of judgments. Next comes the framing of issues. Framing of issues basically on 2 points. One, material facts pleaded by the parties, and also the law. So what is the material point pleaded, and what is the law that is pleaded by parties? It must be gathered from the plaintiff as well as the defendant. And the pleadings, the documents, and the relief that is claimed by the parties should have clear nexus. The pleadings must support the documents support the pleadings, and pleading and documents should support the plaintiff in seeking the relief. So unless the 3 categories, pleadings, documents, and the relief are connecting with each other, the plaintiff will get some relief. Otherwise, if any deficiency of documents or pleadings are there, it will be very difficult for the plaintiff to come out of it. So, when these material facts and material law, the defendant also says that under section 80 he has not given notice, or says the defendant says that the document that is filed by the plaintiff seeking partition is an unregistered partition deed. It requires to be stamped, and stamp duty penalty must be collected, and for want of registration the document cannot be received. So these legal points are regarding the document, regarding the material facts. The court will frame the issues. When the court come to a conclusion that unless some other documents are also required for filing, for framing the issues, even at the stage also, the court may direct the parties to produce those documents. Or other party may file an application before the court for proper framing of issues. So it is always safe, because pleadings, the importance that is given to the pleadings is equally the issues. One, we must, as a plaintiff or as a defendant, we should also give draft issues to the court, because the burden of proof, it all depends. Suppose if it is a money suit, the plaintiff pleads that on a promissory note he has filed a suit. the defendant says that no, the document, the defendant while admitting the borrower may seek discharge. That I have already repaid and this is the document where the plaintiff has executed, but he has not returned the promise or not. So the discharge plea since was taken by the defendant, there should issue must be there with regard to the discharge and the defendant has to commence the trial. So the issues must be framed by the court taking into consideration of material facts as well as law that is pleaded by the parties to the suit. So, example, in the recent past we are seeing that Hindu Succession Act, female daughters are filing the suit in respect of the ancestral properties and saying that by virtue of 2005 amendment they are entitled to seek partition. So the defendant says that though she is a daughter and she is not a co-partner, the 2005 Amendment Act of Hindu Succession is not applicable to the facts of the case. She is not entitled to say. So when such claim is there, whether the plaintiff is a co-partner or not, and whether she is entitled to seek any right over the ancestral properties. So those issues must be there. In the absence of those issues, some judgments are there where parties have already gone into trial and each party has cross-examined at length on these points which were not at all settled in the issues. So in the absence of issues also it can be decided by the court. But there are certain circumstances where it will be very cumbersome and finding on the issue is most important because the adjudicata is applicable. So at the time of framing of the issues, certain documents are also required and without the production of such a document, the court cannot frame issues. So from the stage after filing of this suit, after filing of the defense statement, till the stage of filing of the framing of the issues, there are the documents can be sought for production by the court, adversary party, and other documents. Usually, after framing of the issues, also a list of documents and witnesses, the court will make a docket order. Because even at the stage of after framing of the issues, that will be given. And in the Amendment Act of 2002, Section 18 is there. Alternative dispute redressal forum. That is the legal services society. It will be sent. If the parties agree for compromise, that can be decided by the court. And if they are not inclined to compromise, it will go for the trial. So at this stage, also before the trial is commenced, there is Order 15 is there. Order 15, it says that when parties are not at issues, some defendants are not at issues, it can pass judgment against that defendant. So before trial, there is every possibility of the courts for settlement of dispute. If there is no dispute, when parties are not at issues, it can also pass judgment against those disputes. And the contesting defendants go for trial. So who has to begin? Who has to begin is a question. It all depends upon the issues that were framed. So unless issues are gone through, unless issues are properly made, because sometimes certain issues will be given throwing the burden on the wrong person. So if the burden is placed on the wrong person to prove certain fact or law or that issue, the whole judgment will become vitiated because the burden of proof is clearly mentioned in the Evidence Act that we all know. So who has to begin? It all depends on the issues. It all depends on the framing of the issues. It all depends on the parties, that is advocates and court, in framing proper issues. Suppose if issues are not properly made and suppose other additional issues are required to be filed. Suppose if any other suppose one of the parties to the suit dies during pendency of the trial, either before trial or after trial, he dies, and LRs comes on record. So who are LRs? Who are the LRs? If there is any dispute as to the bringing of LRs, if a separate person also comes, no, I am the LR of so and so deceased, he has executed a deed in my favor, and I am the owner of the property, though he is a legal representative, legal heir, or a son, daughter of so and so, they have no right over the disputed property, and I am the owner of the property. No, one says that he is not the natural son, he is a illegitimate son, and he is not a proper party, I am the only one. And at this stage, the court will take the summary trial. Summary trial among the contesting legal representatives. If it could able to decide who are the legal heirs, it can be. And if it is not able to decide who are the rightful legal heirs of the deceased, that can be postponed, and that question can be kept open by the court till the disposal of this at the time of decision. When the legal heirs are coming on record, there is the legal heirs must confine to the pleadings that was set up by the deceased defendant. Not more than that, the defendant, the LRs who are come on record can take. Beyond the pleadings that were taken by the deceased, they cannot tell. Supposing if this legal heir who is brought on record only by virtue of blood relation, being a wife, the sons or daughters, if they have separate independent right over the scheduled property, independent right over the disputed property, they can file a separate return statement, not adopting the return statement of the deceased. In continuation of the said, if it is not defeating his rights for the property, you can admit. If he is defeated, the return statement that is filed by the deceased defendant affecting his original right, the return statement can be filed by the legal heirs, and after return statement is filed, additional issues will be framed. So, while additional issues is framed and the question is left open, who are the legal heirs? Regarding that also, separate issue must be framed by the court. Supposing all issues are framed still at the time of trial or after at the time of argument, or say, these issues can be altered at any time. These issues can be altered at any time. Even the court is authorized to alter the issues even at the time of pronouncement of judgment. So issues frame a wider role. These pleadings are necessary for the just trial, rightful decision. It must be there. So when the parties are coming to trial, this is most important. Now the trial has begun. Supposing usually the plaintiff has a lead over the property because he is the master of the case, he has to begin the case. Supposing if he do not want to examine himself at the first instance, he want to examine as a witness, then he can also examine the witnesses at the first instance, and subsequent to the witnesses, he can also be examined after the completion of the witnesses produced by him. And second thing is, when the plaintiff is reserving, there are certain issues where the burden of proving those issues on plaintiff, and certain issues are there, it is on the defendant to prove. So when the plaintiff, separate issues on the plaintiff and separate issues on the defendant is there, the plaintiff should complete all his evidences with respect to the burden casted upon him in respect of the issues. So on those issues, he must leave complete evidence. And at this stage, he can file an application or memo seeking the permission of the court to lead rebuttal evidence, evidence after the completion of evidences of all defendants. So while preserving his right to lead rebuttal evidence, it must be only on the issues upon which the adversary party, that is the defendant, is concerned, and the court will permit. So after the completion of the evidences of the defendants, again the plaintiff will have a chance to lead further evidence, because those issues he can lead to rebut those evidences. He can also lead in rebuttal evidence. He can also lead witnesses, examination of parties. So we are starting the evidences. When we are starting the evidences, chief examination will be filed. This is not an empty formality, because it is most important, even most important in the trial, the chief examination. Chief examination, please take into note consideration that don't copy the entire plate as it is. Just remind the olden days where the witnesses is put in the witness box and questions are being framed, questions are being put in the chief examination, and court is recording the evidence. So those questions and answers that was earlier typed by the court in the open court, the chief examination that was held, in that manner the chief examination must be typed by way of affidavit. Don't reproduce the total plate, because the plaintiff or defendant, say defendant, the chief examinations, they are not conversant with the legal languages. The legal languages, they are not conversant with. To go to the facts, it must be very simple, as if the questions are put to him and he has answered and it is typed. So that precaution must be taken. And at the time of Amendment Act 2002, chief affidavit is introduced in the court, in the CPC. So along with the chief affidavit, there are certain the documents that was referred in the plain chief examination. Those documents must be checked up by the court before it is being exhibited. That is most important, because under order rule 18 7, okay, 1 minute. So the chief examination that is filed along with that is filed by mentioning the documents. Those documents must be checked by the court whether the documents are liable for stamp duty and collection of penalty as well, and whether the document can be received in evidence for want of registration also. Those must be checked up, and even in case if it is marked as per the amended provision, it can be demarked, and that can be considered by the court by taking objections. So to avoid this, because we are all aware that insufficient or unstamped document cannot be received as evidence. Suppose if there is no objection on behalf of the adversary party while marking the document, and for any reason, either either due to oversight or otherwise, if the document is marked, that cannot be questioned by subsequently. So to avoid those circumstances, because we may not be physically present when the documents are marked, sometimes some colleagues will be there. We will assign them, and they may not represent the same. So to avoid that, please take the pleadings in the written statement that the documents are liable for stamp duty, penalty. The document cannot be inadmissible in evidence for want of registration, and the nature of suit and the document that is filed. Basing on this document, the relief claimed by the plaintiff cannot be filed. That must be pleaded in this, so that before marking, objections are there in the written statement in writing, because the copy of the written statement is given to the plaintiff and he is aware of it. Even if he do not read the entire written statement, or his advocate is not apprised of those facts, still it is within the knowledge of the court, because the written statement is received by the court, it is on record, received by the advocate, on record, adversary party. So our objection is there in the written statement. That is, even if that document is there, it can be marked, it can be objected. So, so what is the stage, up to what stage we can object? Then because the document is marked, it cannot be objected, is a different matter. But under Order 13 Rule 4, 13 Rule 4, the document which is exhibited, it must be given an exhibit number with the seal, signature of the presiding officer. Until the seal as well as the signature is noted on the exhibit, till such time it is not stated to be an exhibited document. So objection can be taken if no seal or signature is made. We are coming across in the courts in some other cases or rare of the rarest cases or say many cases that signatures are not there or seal of the court is not there on the documents. So we can also take objection at that stage and the court has to consider the document. It is a duty of the court to decide the document. It is because in Evidence Act, the court has to decide the document. They decide the document. So when the court is deciding the document, admissibility of the document must be set up. This admissibility of the document, stamp duty, penalty, or say registration. Regarding the stamp duty, it cannot be postponed at any stage of adjournment. Without payment of stamp duty and penalty, that document cannot be received in evidence at any stage. But with regard to the other objections, as to the want of registration or mode of proving the document, that can be considered by taking note on the in the deposition. This document is marked subject to objection as to for want of registration, as to the objection raised by so and so counsel regarding the registration aspect as well as the mode of proving the document. What is mode of proving the document is, suppose a plaintiff files a suit for declaration and recovery of possession basing on unregistered document. Unregistered document will not confer any right over the property because under more than 100 rupees of value of immovable property, it must be through a registered document. So when unregistered sale is there, when right is not accrued to the plaintiff, how can he file a suit for declaration as well as recovery of possession? When the pleadings are there that I am the owner of the property and this is a document, these are the documents showing my continuous possession over the property, say it is, if it is agricultural land, pahanis, if it is a house or say under other document, the tax payment receipts. But the relief of declaration should be based on a registered document. When there is no registered document, how that document can be received even if stamp duty is paid? Supposing if stamp duty is paid, how the document can be received by the court? For what manner you want to prove? Because when stamp duty is collected, it can be only issued towards collateral purpose. Only collateral purpose, but not for primary use. What is the primary? Declaration of relief, title. When declaration of title, it cannot be decided. So, how the plaintiff is entitled to recover possession? So there are different matters, and this is not the scope of the discussions, the seminar, because these objections are very much important at the time of trial. Because without these objections are raised by the adversary party regarding the marking of document, justice cannot be done to the parties. So these objections must be taken, these objections must be decided by court. We should be very assertive at the time of marking of document. We should be very assertive at the time of taking objections as to the admissibility of the document. Next comes when documents are marked and those documents are objected and taken by the court regarding the objection, it will be decided at the time of the objection. And this must be canvassed at the time of arguments. That during the witness so and so cross-examination of so and so witness or marking of document of so and so witness, this document is marked subject to objection. Stamp duty was filed, stamp duty penalty is paid. Regarding the other objections, and this we have to make argument, and we should also sustain those objections either by the plaintiff and by way of the judicial sections, by way of sections as well as pronouncement of those points that can be decided by the court. So are certain stages where the documents are filed. Pahanis are filed by the plaintiff, say, example. But you say that these pahanis are created by the plaintiff and the original pahanis do not reflect, because all documents, though it is a public document, every document is, though presumptive value is there is also a rebuttal presumption if other public document of the same year is brought and it is in a different manner, then it can be decided by the court. So rebuttal presumption since is there, and you can file an application calling so and so person who is authorized, who is in the custody of the documents. You can call him as a witness to produce those documents and say if his evidence is also required, you must also state in the application that along with the production of document, the said person may be given evidence. So when parties are there and he came, if he is directed to produce only document, it is sufficient, he can produce document before the court. And he should give explanation why if there is no such document in his custody or say record, government record or other record, he can say so by giving an explanation to the court that the notices for production of document would not contact with me. When the original pahani is there and the pahani that is filed by the plaintiff is in a different manner, the presumption regarding the probative value of the document that is filed by the plaintiff will be losing. So we will call certain person to produce documents. There are certain there are circumstances where earlier suit is suppressed by the plaintiff. You are aware of that. You are not party to the suit. You may file an application for call for those documents from the other documents. Or if there is any pending suit, you can as well call for that plaint or other document that is relevant in the evidence. So you can also file an application for production of documents. So before that, there are one or other circumstances that you must make an attempt to obtain certificate copy. You must make an attempt to obtain certificate copy and also show that even my efforts could not become fruitful. Those documents can be filed. Those documents can be filed. Supposing at the stage of argument, if you want to file certain documents, if those documents are certain document, government record, say like GO or other document, those documents can be called for, or those certificate copies that is as required under the Evidence Act, if it is a certificate copy, it can be filed. It can be marked even without calling an advocate, even without calling the officer who has maintained those documents. So those documents, because it is a certificate copy, government copy, undisputed government copy, those documents can be marked for disproving the other side case, even without calling any other witnesses in there. And there are other circumstances where the opposite party is holding a document, which is material document, and it is lying in his file. You can immediately make an application to the court, sir. The disputed property which he has surfaced, it is lying in the file. It is being held by the plaintiff or some other custody in the court hall. Then and there the court will order to take out the file and verify whether the document which is stated by the party who has filed the petition, if it is right, that can be issued by the court. So this document, production of documents, call for documents, these are the material places where we can improve the case or to disprove the case of other parties. And next is one more important. When the suit is filed, summons are issued and defendant did not file written statement or some other person. And if the defendant or party to any of the suit is leaving the jurisdiction of the court, he want to examine himself. He want to examine himself even before issues also. Then and there, because I may not be within the jurisdiction of the court, under Order 16, there is a provision that he can make an application and request the court to take his evidence. And the court, even in the absence of written statement, say in other circumstances, his evidence will be taken. Usually, eventually, if these circumstances arises, it will compel the other party to file return statement or the issues are framed and those factors can be considered. And because even before issues are framed also, they can be examined. Next, when the suit is led for argument, while preparing for the argument, we will consider that these are the lapses where we have failed to cross-examine one of the parties, or we have not produced one of the witnesses who are material witnesses, or we have not filed any such documents though pleaded. You can file an application to recall or reopen the evidences of the parties. Maybe it is plaintiff or defendant or witnesses of the plaintiff or witnesses of the defendant. It is not also, the parties are not prevented from recalling or reopening the evidences. At any stage, it can be for sufficient days if the court feels that this is required. The court can allow the application and evidence can be recorded. Next comes when the legal statement after the completion of evidence, even after the completion of recalling of witnesses and every stage is there. Now it is right for arguments. So how arguments must be made during the oral arguments, how it could be submitted when you are writing written arguments. It all depends from person to person, the points that were raised, the manner, it all depends from advocate to advocate in presenting oral submissions. While dealing with this arguments, if you want to write a written statement, written arguments, it can be filed, and along with the written statement, written arguments, you can as well file the citations. So, for bringing for the court to come for a just disposal of the case in deciding the list between the parties, it is a duty on the part of the advocates on the court as well as judicial officer, because judicial officers are equipped with laptops and all other libraries. I don't think what other I don't know what other softwares are given, but all are equipped with sufficient legal judgments. So it is a duty of advocate bar and bench to present the judgments, particularly the ratio that is decided by court, and as well as the applicability of judgment, because precedent is one of the most important that must be distinguishable judgments. Though it appears to be in favor of the plaintiff and it appears to be in the favor of the defendant, but the nature of the suit, the circumstances where such a point is decided by the court, and the facts and circumstances of the instant court must be same. So unless facts, circumstances in which those findings were given by the Supreme Court or High Courts, unless those are connected with the facts and circumstances of the case, it cannot be attested. So we must be very assertive. In submitting the judgments on behalf of the parties. There are certain judgments. Factual judgments are there, legal judgments are there. Factual judgments are those judgments where particularly High Court, up to High Court, we will find a factual discussion. First Appellate Court, it is because it is continuation of the suit, First Appellate Court also totally can reread the entire judgment given by the trial court in the First Appellate Court. But the reported judgments are High Court as well as the Supreme Court. Particularly High Court, in most of the judgments, factual aspects will also be taken into consideration because it is second appeal. When it is a second appeal, a question of law is to be raised. The question of law pertains to different aspects, even regarding to the fact, even regarding to the documents, even regarding the wrong placing of burden on the parties in proving the case, those factors will be there. So, by deciding those aspects, the depositions of the parties, the documents of the parties will be discussed, and while appreciating the evidence, it will come to a different conclusion by setting aside the trial court judgment or appellate court judgment. So one has to refer those judgments particularly in appreciating the evidence, because when you are more and more reading the judgments, appreciating the evidence, the more and more you will be very confident in facing the trial, either as a plaintiff or defendant. So these picking of judgment, citing, sometimes you may go by the head note of the judgment, but the content of the judgment, it may go against it. And though it is not relevant, but I may be permitted to say that the certain judgments of Supreme Court, it will be rendered under Article 142. 142, as all of us know, that it is only for doing justice to the parties, inherent powers of the court, Supreme Court. Only Supreme Court has power to give justice to party, it can give judgment. The judgment rendered by the Supreme Court under Article 142 is not a precedent. So please kindly take note that the judgments that were cited by the other counsel, whether the judgment in the last paragraph it will be given under Article 142 and some judgments are there only between the parties. This judgment is applicable only between the parties to this case. There are most judgments are there, it cannot be a precedent. So these are all the aspects, because for a successful advocate, either for the plaintiff or defendant, to my assessment, these are the factors that must be taken care by us in facing the trial as well as in arguing the case, submitting the arguments as well as the judgments. I think this is helpful for the viewers.
Sir, question for one is from Poonur Suresh Kumar. The common course of practice, the petition under Order 9, Rule 7 is allowing even the case is posted for judgment stage. Whether it is
No.
at the stage of judgment.
It cannot be received. It cannot be received because there is Supreme Court judgment also on this aspect under 9 Rule 7. It has completely read each and every provision of Order 9, and the circumstances where the defendant is precluded from filing application under Order 9 Rule 7 when the matter is heard and posted for judgment. Till the matter is heard, it can be entertained, and it is also subject to certain conditions. The stage at which the application is filed and the conduct of the petitioner in moving the application. If it can be guessed, it cannot be permitted to file legal statement. So the Supreme Court judgment, which is also carried out in other judgments where 9 Rule 7 is not entertained after hearing and posted for judgment. And even if it is read, 1 minute, 9 Rule 4, 9 Rule 7.
another
Because-
question. 1 minute. Another question.
Hmm.
Sir,
Hmm.
in a succession OP, where the petitioners filed OP against the respondents, pleading that the respondents are not entitled to,
Hmm.
where the respondents pleaded by filing counter that they are entitled to,
Hmm.
without filing counter claim,
Hmm.
without paying court fee, whether such claim is maintainable or not.
Succession certificate, it is filed under order under section 376 of Indian Succession Act. When succession certificate is court fee, that is a separate court fee is mentioned in the Court Fee Act. That court fee can be paid at the time of filing of OP if he is able to ascertain the value of the certificate, and if he is not able to ascertain the value of the certificate, or if you want to pay the non-judicial stamp worth that is given in the Court Fee Act, it can be permitted to be paid at the time of issuance of certificate. When the respondent comes and files counter and says that the petitioner is not entitled to any succession certificate. In fact, I am entitled to succession certificate. One aspect is suppose if there is a will, or suppose if the disputed parties are there, one is legal legitimate, one is illegitimate, or say one is a legal heir, the other is a step brother. Whether step brother is entitled to seek the succession certificate. So while deciding the certificate, who are entitled to receive the certificate, the court will direct the parties to pay the court fee. And even after succession certificate is there, supposing if succession certificate is petition OP is allowed and succession certificate is given to the parties as pleaded by them, or suppose if original person who is entitled to a succession certificate, if he comes to know about the passing of this OP, he can as well file a petition to recall the succession order, recall the order passed by the court under 376. So when that application is filed, the succession certificate that was granted will be cancelled and new succession certificate can be granted to this.
Sir, another question. In declaration of legal heir suits, some of the legal heirs are not cooperating for file suit.
Yes.
As such, made them as defendants.
Okay.
But the court took objections and not giving the number. What is the
Usually, regarding the joint family matters, or they say co-owners, co-partners, co-owners, or co-legal heirs, co-heirs, the commonality of the right over the property. Supposing if three brothers are there, one of the brother is filing an application, the other two are residing outside the jurisdiction of India. He can file a petition, or he can file any suit, but not particularly legal heir certificate, any nature of suit he can file, saying that the other persons are also equally entitled along with me, and they are not within the jurisdiction of the courts, and in the given circumstances, since the matter is urgent, I am filing the suit even for the benefit of those persons who are equally entitled along with me. Or say I am adding as a defendant and notices may be given to them. Even in their absence also, if one of the co-owner, co-heir, co-partner files a suit of any nature, even if it is in the interest or without defeating the rights of other co-owners, the suit is maintainable. Even in the absence of GP also. But necessary pleadings must be there. And it must be proved. And now it is very easy. Suppose if those persons are not within the jurisdiction of the court or outside the jurisdiction of India, video conference we can also take their evidence, or we can also take the emails or affidavits, whatever the other mode of proof showing that they are not reachable at the time of filing of the suit. Because it is in the interest of those parties also, the suit is maintained. And because the question is particularly with regard to the declaration of legal heirs. Declaration of legal heirs, usually I am coming across, including one of my suit also, I have filed this suit and declaration is sought for, and so government report, say LIC or the government some return benefit, death benefits we are entitled to, we may be declared as legal heirs. That is the only relief that is being asked by the parties. But in a suit for declaration, without consequential relief, this declaration suit is not made. So what is the consequential relief you are claiming this suit in a suit to declare that I am the legal heir? What is the consequential relief? The consequential relief is that we are entitled to receive the death benefits. Because the death benefits are running into lakhs and court fee has to be paid in a larger amount, these type of only declarations are being sought and these suits are being dismissed. And one of the legal heirs can file an application by giving all the particulars, document evidence and file a suit. But please don't go by the judgments that are there. Don't go by the judgments, because today's judgment, tomorrow it may not be there. Basing on those documents, we must first read the provision. We should file the suit. While filing the suit. And regarding the one point, most important at the time of during the course of from the stage of suit to stage of this judgment, there are important provisions, particularly one very assertive regarding the after death to seek legal heirs on record. When legal heirs are not brought on record within time, when legal heirs are not brought within time, the suit may be abated, the whole suit may be abated, not only against the deceased defendant, but also against the other defendants. And if he is plaintiff, if other legal heirs are not brought on record, even in that ground also, the suit